Nestled in Murphrees Valley between Ellison Crossroads and Pine Grove Cemetery is a small family cemetery known as the Asa Scott or Scott Family Cemetery. This cemetery is relatively unknown, but like most of the cemeteries along Murphrees Valley Road, it represents the history of the area prior to the rise of Altoona. In the last video on Pine Grove Cemetery, we briefly touched on the Kinney family, whose young son Dalt was the first non-Thompson burial in the cemetery. Dalt's parents were Joseph and Asa Scott Kinney. Asa was the daughter of Matthew Scott. Joseph Kinney's sister Cynthia Adeline Kinney married Matthew Scott's nephew James Thomas Scott. James and Cynthia had a total of 9 children, 5 boys and 6 girls. While we will explore the Scott family as a whole, the main focus of the video is the Scott Family Cemetery, containing the burials of the couple's oldest sons, William Asa and John Thomas Scott. Building on the Kinney-Scott connection as a reference point, Joseph Kinney obtained his property from James Thompson in August 1875. This was followed by Kinney's father-in-law, Matthew Scott, who purchased a small tract south of Kinney's in April 1880. 2 years later, in January 1882, James T. Scott purchased a small parcel from Matthew Scott. This property was roughly located to the west of the current 2nd Avenue and Sage Road. Now, the dates that the property was obtained via formal deeds do not tell the entire story. An examination of Blount County tax records from 1876 reveals that the Scott family was involved with the property while still under the ownership of Joseph Kinney. Whether this was both Matthew and James Scott, or one or the other, is unknown. However, later writings by Cynthia Scott, the daughter of James and Cynthia Kinney Scott, state that the family came to Blount County in 1876. Furthermore, this small portion of property that was first obtained by James Scott in 1882 was not the site of the original family homestead. What would become the family home site was not obtained until 1891, when James Scott purchased 80 acres to the west of Joseph Kinney's property. It's likely that the Scott family were located on this property when they moved to the county in 1876, but due to their close relationship with the Kinney family, did not formally obtain the property until 1891. This property was located to the west of the modern Sage Road and south of County Road 39. Let's take a few moments and explore the evolution of the property, in yellow, throughout the last century, paying special attention to the area within the orange circle, which was the location of the original family home place. This collection of aerial photos explores the evolution of the property from 1937 to 1942, 1958, 1963, and concluding in 2023. In order to tell the most complete story about the Scott family, let's shift away from the homestead and take a look at Cynthia James Scott, the 8th of 9 children and youngest daughter in the Scott family. Cynthia was born on April 15, 1887, on the family property near Ellison Crossroads. She never married. What makes her unique is the fact that she wrote several poems which appeared in the Southern Democrat. Likewise, she also chronicled short biographical briefs about her family, which also appeared in the newspaper. I previously wrote about Lewis Ellington Jones in my book Tales From Altoona Cemeteries. Some of the source material on Jones came from Cynthia's writing. It's through these brief biographical sketches that put together the dates and information on her parents and other members of her family. I would like to take some time and explore them in her own words. Let's begin with Cynthia's brother, Franklin Sylvania Scott. Cynthia James Scott wrote the following in memory of her brother. It appeared in the October 7, 1915 edition of the Southern Democrat.
Franklin Scott was born December 16, 1881, in Etowah County, was fatally wounded in Acmar Mines, St. Clair County, July 17, 1915. Between 10 and 11 a.m., departed this life on Sunday between 10 and 11 p.m., July 18, 1915, in Birmingham South Highland Infirmary, age 33 years, 7 months, and 2 days. Doc, as he was better known, was a faithful son, a dear brother, and a true friend in time of need. Strictly moral, honest, sober, and always ready to lend a helping hand to those in distress. He leaves a father, mother, 3 brothers, 4 sisters, and many friends, more especially those throughout the mining district of Jefferson County, where he has labored for a number of years, to mourn his death. It was sad indeed to give up our dear brother in the way he had to go. Received the death stroke with pick and shovel in his hand. While doing his daily duty, the death angel came. While there is a sad gloom in our home, a vacant place that can never be filled, heaven seems nearer and dearer to us, for we feel sure that our dear brother is there and that we will meet him someday where partings never come. Before his departure, he spoke of his folks at home and asked his brother to care for his parents, that he couldn't live, and rather not in the condition he was in. At the last, he turned, waved his hand, and tried to clasp his brother in his arms. With a lovely smile, he passed away in the arms of his brother, J.L. Scott of Gadsden. 'Tis sad to say, but it's true. Some people near here robbed him of money he had labored so hard to earn. On them that stain will ever be, and follow them down to the grave. Alas, it is too late to pay the debt to him, for he has gone to Jesus, never more to return. Funeral services conducted by Reverends Treadaway and Abernathy at the Methodist Episcopal Church, Altoona, Tuesday, July 20th, 1915. Interment at Lebanon Cemetery. Written by his sister, Cynthia Scott.
Less than a year after the death of her brother, Cynthia would also eulogize her mother, Cynthia Adeline Kinney Scott. The following appeared in the June 8, 1916 edition of the Southern Democrat.
Cynthia Adeline Kinney Scott was born in Carroll County, Georgia, on December 8, 1844. Departed this life in Blount County, Alabama at 5 a.m. on Thursday morning, February 24, 1916. Age 71 years, 2 months, and 16 days. Professed a hope in Christ at the age of 14 years, and joined the Missionary Baptist Church at Macedonia in Carroll County. At the age of 18 years, being in perfect health, picked her scripture for funeral service, Job chapter 16, verse 19. Also, now behold, my witness is in heaven, and my record is on high. In 1866, moved to Polk County, Georgia, married to James T. Scott December 6, 1868, and came to Alabama in 1876. Was the mother of 9 children, 7 of whom survive her. Was an invalid for 25 years, although very patient and submissive as anyone could have been. Her afflictions were similar to that of Job. Only 7 months from the time of her death, her son most dear was crushed to death in Acmar mines. She bore it as patient as any mother could, but seemed to grow weaker in mind and body. Said she could give him up better as he was a good boy, and had been so good to us all, that she knew it was the Lord's will to take him from this world of trouble. She was a true companion, and the dearest mother in this world to me. She made mention of Job's affliction many times during her illness. She said she hated to leave her family, but rather go than live and suffer. She didn't dread death, but was ready and willing to go when the Lord called her. She was good to all her children and grandchildren, always willing to forgive our neglect and carelessness toward her. Trusted us to go to church and Sabbath school, and more special than all, to care for the sick, see that they had food and raiment. But alas, we haven't taken her training as we should. Some of us have been too careless even with dear mother who has been so good and kind to all. She has toiled both day and night for her children. There was nothing in her power too great for her to do for her children and grandchildren. We should never forsake parents, nor anyone, for no one loves and cares for us like father and mother. Her motto was to say something good for all or say nothing at all. She repeated that on the morning before her calling. If you cannot say something good, just say nothing. If we don't do our duty, it isn't Mother's fault, for she taught us to do right in all things. I feel sure that we have lost our best friend. I did all in my power to keep Mother, but alas, in vain. I never was too tired to do something for her comfort, but still not satisfied as there were so many things needful for me to do. She said shortly before her departure that I had made many more steps for her than she had for me, and that when she was gone, I'd have nothing to regret and for me not to grieve over her troubles, that I had not been the cause of her trouble. The last words that we could understand was, "Cynthia just can't get close enough to me. No one can imagine how I miss her. Her vacant place can never be filled. How lonely at morning and at night when I reach over by my side to see how Mother is resting, as I did when she was with me here, and awake from my dreams to know that I will never find her by my side in this world again. It seems too hard to give her up, but we have but to submit to Him who knoweth best, and doeth all things well. Not our will, but His way, His will be done. Membership at Union Hill Church, funeral service conducted at Altoona Methodist Church by Reverend Sims. First song, Nearer My God to Thee. Second, Nearer the Home Over the River, Shall We Meet Beyond the River. Dear ones, it's time to meet dear Mother, beyond the river where parting comes no more. Her lonely daughter, Cynthia Scott.
Almost 3 years after the death of her mother, her father, James Thomas Scott, died on January 25, 1919. Cynthia eulogized her father in the May 15, 1919 edition of the Southern Democrat by writing,
J.T. Scott was born in Franklin County, Georgia, November 29, 1844, and departed this life January the 25th, 1919, aged 74 years, 1 month, and 25 days. Spent some time in Polk County, Georgia, was a son of Archibald and Mary Keeling Scott, was married to Adeline Kinney in 1868, and came to Alabama in 1876. He was a soldier in the Civil War and spent the remainder of his life in Etowah and Blount counties. Was raised an orphan, his father dying when he was a small boy, and his mother only lived until he was 13 years of age. His elder brother Washington was killed in a battle at Seven Pines, Virginia. Arch, the younger brother, was missing in a battle at Bull Run, Virginia. His father was a cousin to General Scott, a native of Virginia. Father was a cripple from 5 years of age, fell from a horse trough and broke his right arm, had been an invalid for years. On January 12th, while walking across the floor, he fell and crushed his hip and broke his leg. This is the third one of our family who had the misfortune to get their legs broken. 2 proved fatal. He was very patient and kind, said he was ready and willing to go, that the heavens had been opened to him. He saw a ship at the door prepared to carry his soul away, that heaven and all in it was pure and white, and had prayed that all the sinful world could only see the vision as he had seen it, and that he prayed to God to forgive all who had ever wronged him in any way. He said what a sweet world to live in if all would only live right, and that he wanted to meet everybody in heaven, that his time was short, and he wanted to leave a holy record, for all to live so as to meet him again, that his affliction was like unto Job, and he had done his best to be patient and faithful. The Lord knoweth best, and never made any mistakes. He was converted and joined the Missionary Baptist Church in 1891, and the same date lost a son with typhoid fever, and in 1915 lost another son, crushed in the mines, and in 1916 his companion. His last brother passed away in 1913. 7 children, 2 sisters, and 12 grandchildren survive him. We miss him in our home. No one can fill the place of mother and father in the home. How heartrending it was to see a father with his leg hanging in a swing. But we can now think of that happy change, that sweet reunion of loved ones over there in that city where all is pure and white, and in the face of our Savior, shall forever be the light. In that land of heaven so fair, we have the sweet assurance there'll be no lame ones there. Interment at Lebanon Cemetery. Peace to his memory. His lovely daughter, Miss Cynthia Scott.
Aside from her parents and brother Franklin, I would like to briefly look at a few of Cynthia's siblings. I previously mentioned Sister Mary Scott, who married Louis Ellington Jones. The couple are buried in the Altoona Walnut Grove Cemetery. Also buried at Altoona Walnut Grove is sibling Ira Eugene Scott. Sister Maggie Josephine Scott married Money Thompson, a descendant of James Thompson, and is buried in the new Mount Moriah Cemetery. 2 other siblings are buried in Pinson, Alabama, and in Florida. Cynthia was the longest-lived of her siblings. However, her life was not easy. Less than a year after the death of her father, she is enumerated with her brother Asa on the family farm. However, in 1930, she is nowhere to be found. Likewise, Asa is now shown as a boarder in the home of James W. Denson. However, a closer look reveals that there is more to the story. Returning to the 1920 census, Asa and Cynthia are shown as owning their property, which is situated between Wesley Cleveland and J.H. Thompson. Returning to the 1930 census, it's revealed that Denson, whose household that Scott is now a member of, rents his property, which is situated between that of Wesley Cleveland and J.H. Thompson. This would indicate that Scott still resides on the family property. However, where is Cynthia? She appeared in the 1930 census in Tuscaloosa, where she is a resident of Bryce Hospital. After her brother's death in 1939, she appears in the obituary as residing in Tuscaloosa, where she is still found on the 1940 census at Bryce Hospital. So what happened to Cynthia and Asa after the death of their father? This is revealed in probate records after Asa's death. Cynthia's sister Annie Scott Thornhill filed letters asking for administration over the Scott estate. As a part of this process, it's revealed that the estate was to be split 6 ways among the surviving Scott children. Thornhill also lists the estate as being valued as $200 based on yearly rental value. Based on this, it appears that after the death of their father, that Asa inherited the family property. Due to rising debts, he rented the estate out to the Denson family. During this process, the court ordered that attorney Leland Randall be appointed to represent Cynthia, who was listed as confined to Bryce Hospital due to an unsound mind. In December 1940, Leslie Thornhill, the 36-year-old daughter of Annie, and Cynthia's niece petitioned the court for guardianship over Cynthia's estate, which was said to be worth around $350. The court approved the request, and Leslie was made guardian of Cynthia's estate. Cynthia spent the rest of her life at Bryce Hospital, passing away on June 13, 1967. She was buried next to her parents and brother Franklin Scott at Lebanon Methodist Church Cemetery. This leads us to the Scott family cemetery. Who is buried there, and why are they not with the remaining family at Lebanon Cemetery? The answer to the first question is quite simple. The burials at the Scott family cemetery on the old family home place belong to brothers William Asa and John Thomas Scott. They represent the oldest 2 children of Cynthia Kinney and James Scott. Let's begin with John Thomas Scott, who was the first of the brothers buried in the cemetery. Although she never met him, Cynthia eulogized her brother prior to her mother in the June 8, 1916 edition of the Southern Democrat. Her words run heavy with the recent losses of both her brother and mother.
John Thomas Scott was born in Pope County, Georgia, May 4, 1873, came to Alabama in 1876, departed this life in Blount County, Alabama, March 16, 1891, at age 17 years, 10 months, and 12 days. Typhoid fever was the result of death. Attending physician Dr. J. H. Ellison of Altoona. By request of my father, I am writing, as there wasn't any county paper at the time of his death. I knew nothing of the life of this dear brother only from the words of father, mother, and older brothers and sisters. John was a good, quiet, honest, sober boy. So good, kind, and loving with father, mother, brothers, and sisters, always ready and willing to do some deed of kindness for anyone in need. 25 years have elapsed since his departure, but his love, faithfulness, and kindness lives with us still. His last words were to father, "I want to tell you, but can't express myself." Called over words, "A charge to keep I have, a God to glorify, a never-dying soul to save, and fit it for the sky." This was sung at the grave, also at his brother's funeral service. Same scripture for both brothers, 15th chapter of 1 Corinthians. Only 9 months since his brother went to meet him. 2 months since our dear mother was carried away to dwell with her sons and many loved ones over there. While our hearts were left so sad, what a great meeting for Brother John to welcome dear mother and brother home, where sorrow is unknown and parting never comes. Yet in a little while we too will be called to meet them. There'll be a family reunion gathered around the throne that will be much sweeter than the last reunion at home. If we live aright and meet our loved ones gone, where partings never come. But few are left to know who witnessed the funeral of John. Service conducted by Reverend Hancock, internment on the home farm in Murphrees Valley. They are waiting and watching for us, willing to open wide the gate. Dear ones, let us hasten onward. Don't linger till too late. Written by his lonely sister, left without mother to care for home, Cynthia Scott.
The second and final burial at the Scott family cemetery belongs to William Asa Scott. At the time, Cynthia was interred at Bryce, and no eulogy, if she wrote one, was published. However, he does have an obituary which may provide some insight into why he was buried on the cemetery: to be next to his brother. This obituary was found in the March 30th, 1939 edition of the Southern Democrat. William Asa Scott died on Friday, March 24th, 1939, at the home of Mr. and Mrs. Jim Denson on Route 3, Altoona, after a week's illness with influenza and pneumonia. Mr. Scott was 69 years of age last October and was one of the oldest settlers, having lived in the community for 61 years. He was never married, and for the past 16 years had lived in the Denson home, and he and their family were very much attached. His passing has left a vacant place in their home. He was one of the few characters of the olden times, an honest and upright man who gave a great deal of his means to charity and helping those less fortunate than he. He was very quiet and unobtrusive, quietly going about doing good. He had many friends, as was shown by the large group attending his funeral held at Pine Grove near Altoona on Sunday afternoon. Reverend J.F. Carver and Reverend Parrish, pastor of the Pine Grove Church, conducted his funeral. A group of the younger men of the neighborhood served as pallbearers. He was always a friend to the young. Young women and 4 small girls served as flower girls. He was buried by the side of his brother John, near the old Scott home place. The deceased is survived by 2 brothers, Lee of Florida and Ira of Georgia, 4 sisters, Mrs. Annie Thornhill of Mount Pinson, Mrs. Mary Jones of Montgomery, Mrs. Maggie Thompson of Altoona, Route 2, and Miss Cynthia Scott of Tuscaloosa. After Asa Scott's death, Sister Annie Thornhill was appointed administrator of his estate. As a part of the settlement, she sold the Scott property to A.G. McDermott for $1,500 and divided the funds between her siblings. When the property was conveyed to McDermott, the description included a clause that a 50-foot square containing the grave of Scott was to be reserved for the use of family and relatives. After the sale of the property, James Denson sued Thornhill and Cynthia Scott. While the verdict in the Thornhill case was unknown, it appears that he lost his case to Cynthia and was ordered to pay $48. As we conclude our look at the Scott family cemetery, we're reminded that cemeteries are often about much more than names and dates carved into stone. They tell stories of families, hardships, faith, and the bonds that connected people during their lives. The Scott family left a lasting mark on this portion of Murphrees Valley. Through the writings of Cynthia Scott, we are able to glimpse not only the facts of their lives, but also the deep love that existed within the family. Her words preserve memories that otherwise might have been lost to time, allowing us to better understand the people behind the names. At the center of this story are John Thomas Scott and William Asa Scott, the 2 oldest children of James Thomas and Cynthia Adeline Scott. Although nearly a half-century separated their deaths, they shared a unique place within the family. John was the first of the Scott children to pass away, dying in 1891 at only 17 years of age. Asa, the eldest son, spent the remainder of his life on or near the family home place and was buried there in 1939. While no record survives explaining exactly why Asa was buried beside John rather than at Lebanon Cemetery with his parents, brother Franklin, and sister Cynthia, the answer may be found in the relationship between the 2 brothers. As the oldest children in the family, they shared experiences and responsibilities unknown to their younger siblings. John's death left a lasting impression on the family, one that Cynthia was still writing about 25 years later. When Asa died, those responsible for his burial may have felt there was no more fitting place for him than beside his older brother on the old family homestead. Today, the Scott family cemetery remains as a quiet reminder of that connection. Hidden among the hills of Murphrees Valley, the 2 brothers continue to rest side by side on the land where their family built a home, raised their children, and created a legacy that still survives through records, memories, and the stories left behind.